Councilmember Campillo.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you very much, SDG&E, for your presentation today and for continuing to live up to this obligation and the agreements we have. As my colleagues have stated and as my constituents also feel, the rates are causing many economic issues for too many families in District 7, just the compounded effect of cost of utilities. If it's hot in the summer or if it's cold in the winter, it's simply very, very expensive. I want to get to an item related to what happened last year with the lack of supply that was stored up for the winter, because as you pointed out, Mr. Kreider, multiple components work together to spike the cost of a therm of gas. You showed us a chart that shows that you have received permission from the CPUC to store up more gas to avoid such a similar situation this winter. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and when you purchase the gas to store it, you purchase it at the price that is multiple months in advance of the winter, correct?
It's not just us, but all market participants that would use that storage field go out predominantly in the summertime and buy gas when it's cheaper and store it.
Okay, and then when you sell it to customers in the winter, is it going to be more expensive than it was when you bought it, or is it going to be at the price of the market for gas in the winter when people need it?
It's, from what I understand, it would be a blended. You know what? Before I comment on that, neither one of the gas procurement actually. Valerie, do you know? Okay.
Yeah, it's the same price as what we paid for it. So, like any commodity, it's a pass-through dollar for dollar.
Okay, so last winter when you had some amount of gas to sell or stored up, did you charge people for what you bought it for or for what it would cost in the winter?
Again, it's an absolute 100% pass-through.
Okay, that didn't really answer the question, because it seems to me like you're doing a good job. I remember Councilmember LaCava asked a very, very straightforward question last winter. I feel like you guys answered it. You said we weren't ready for it, and you can't predict the future. What I'm wondering is the market price of gas when you buy it, when the contract is executed. I think your contract is executed on the 31st of the month, correct?
It's sometime before. It's the last week.
Okay, it's right in around there. It's going to be whatever the multiple demands of the public across multiple states relative to the supply of gas and the availability because of the pipelines needing to work, and it's going to jump up because it's colder and people are going to want to sell it or are going to want to buy it. So utility company is going to go out. They bid on it, right? Or it's fixed.
We do go buy gas on a monthly basis. So you'd have to bid in.
Okay.
Or
so if you have,
sometimes it's the opposite too.
So if you have a lot of gas that you've stored up already in anticipation, you're going to then blend the prices from when you bought it plus what you're buying right now, and then it's going to be at that price.
So one thing to keep in mind, Councilmember, is that the gas that's stored in the fields is not just all of SDG&E or SoCal gases. Market participants, power plant owners, lots of participants can actually use that. So all the molecules of gas that go into that field can be used in various elements of the market.
Okay, so SDG&E hasn't stored up gas. Everybody has stored up gas.
That's correct.
Okay. And you all bought it for the same price, or?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay, but it's paid for.
It is paid for.
Okay. What I'm asking is, we're going to be looking at the public needing gas to heat their homes because it's going to be more on demand. The price is going to go up, but you have hedged against that price increase because you stored it back then.
Storage is one way to hedge, correct?
Okay. Now, based on the reason I ask those questions is because we move to the next set of questions. Everyone's pointing out how the CPUC gives you essentially a rate of how much profit you're quote unquote allowed to make, correct?
Not on the gas commodity.
Okay, so only on the electricity commodity.
Not on electricity commodity either. We only make profit on the installed infrastructure, so pipes and wires.
I see. Okay. So set that aside. Do you think that you've done enough in terms of storage, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of educating the public on efficiency to make sure that we do not see a tripling of the cost of a therm in this come January 1st?
Councilmember, I think we've done absolutely everything that we possibly can, including doing that request to request more storage. So we have taken all the steps that's in our power to do in order to not see a huge spike. Now, like I said, the only caveat is if you have a third-party gas pipeline go down or some other supply disruption, that can impact it. But from our perspective, we've done everything that we can to get ready for this winter.
Understood. Okay. So one of the other things that was concerning last winter is that multiple other utilities seem to have their contract execution date at favorable times, and SDG&E's was later. And so it looked like customers of other utilities got the break and didn't have to pay that high amount, and we had to pay a very high amount just as a matter of bad luck, it seemed. So from your view of things right now, where do you predict the cost of one therm is going to be at the end of this month? Surely your economists have a prediction of what that looks like.
The only thing I can say, Councilmember, it would be against the law for me to disclose what we think the price of natural gas is going to be the next month.
Fair enough.
We are too big of a market participant, and so all I can say is that the market forces that we're seeing, the supply availability, the infrastructure availability, weather forecasts, is we're in much better shape than we were in January.
Okay. We're going to see on January 1st what the price of a therm is. Second aspect here, I think there's very few things, it seems, in our economy where there's a maximum profit that you're allowed to draw. That's a strange concept in pretty much most people's parlance. Does the state recommend or advise that you do anything with the excess profits beyond the percentage that the CPUC, or do they say you're good to go, pocket that, send it back as dividends?
Yeah. So they do not have any guidance for how that's used.
Okay. So why do they even set a allowed amount of revenue, or excuse me, profit? That if there's going to be no, if I could have just another few minutes, Council President. Can you explain to the public why we even use that parlance of, allowed profit, and that they are exceeding the allowed profit? That just, it ruffles people's feathers to think that you're earning more than you should, but there's no accountability mechanism for going over that cap. That seems to be the real, besides the fact, well, what's really as bad as how high the rates are. But the profit margin, it seems, do you get what I'm saying?
I'm sorry. I'm going to ask Valerie Billy to respond to you, Councilmember.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember. It's a great question. I want to maybe just clarify a couple of points. First of all, the state audit report did lay out what our authorized rate of return is and what our actual rate of return is over the same period of time. I do want to reflect that authorized rate of return is only for what the state commission governs. We also have a portion of our business that is governed by the Federal Electric Reliability Commission, right, our transmission assets, and that rate of return is different than what the state authorizes, and it's actually higher. So what's shown as authorized is only that lower state amount, and what's shown as our actual rate of return is actually a blended of the two rates. And so that accounts for a portion of the difference. It's actually not an apples to apples comparison. So I do want to clarify that. To your direct question around the rate of return, the commission does establish that rate of return on our infrastructure. It's a public proceeding. It is a very important proceeding. This allows us the rate that we are allowed to return, and that rate is really important for the financial health of a utility, because in order to make these investments in our infrastructure and wildfire safety and reliability, we need to be able to attract investors to invest money into the business to allow us to make those investments, right? And so if our rate of return is so low, we're not going to attract the investors that we need to make those investments. And so if you think of this rising interest rate environment right now that we're in, where interest rates are, 6%, 7%, 8%, Investors can go buy a bond for 7% with no risk, or they can invest in the utility at 7% with risk. And so which are they going to do? And so that rate of return is very important, that it's set at an appropriate level for us to be able to attract investors to continue to make these infrastructure investments. And then to Scott's point earlier, that sets the rate of return, and then it's up to the utility to manage, the operating costs. And to the extent that we are able to manage those operating costs more effectively, that produces, a slightly potentially higher profit than what you would expect based on the authorized rate of return.
Okay. I think that the idea that investors need some sort of enticement to come invest in an energy company that has $900 million in profit is strange to me. I get what you're saying. You're following the law. If you're following the federal law, that's a new one to me. I've only heard about the state CPUC cap. This is the first time I've heard there's a federal cap on top of that. I would say that as I look at Sempra's Form 10Ks from the past several years, the dividends paid would lead a lot of investors to want to invest in Sempra, and SDG&E being a profit generating subsidiary of that would suggest why. I'm interested in the next conversation to figure out how and why that percentage is calculated. And I think, as you well know, I have written letters to the CPUC on numerous programs related to energy, particularly solar. I think that there's a lot of ways in which the public does not get the benefit of the doubt, does not get the benefit and return on their investment in sustainability, and we need to continue to promote those ideas. I know it's a very complicated set. I wish I could know that number that is being predicted there, but I understand that there's legal concerns, Mr. Kreider. Thank you for your presentation. I look forward to our next conversation on how we can keep these rates as low as possible. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Council.